I always thought, you know, for a midlife crisis, I should sail across the Atlantic. Dune buggy! Yes! There is nowhere better to live than the United States of America. And to my mother-in-law, what's up, people? The day has come where it's time for Casey Putsch's midlife crisis, which is really weird to say because I spoke in the third person, and that's kind of creepy. But I always thought, you know, for a midlife crisis, I should sail across the Atlantic. I've sailed on a tall ship, and I've done lots of other things. Basically, my entire life is a midlife crisis. So, and it's probably not even time for that yet, but even still, I got one. It's pretty epic. Dune buggy, yes! So this particular dune buggy, I will tell you, weighs 800 pounds and makes approximately 200 horsepower. That is a better power to weight ratio than my Formula Atlantic car was back in the day, which was one of the fastest cars I ever lapped Mid-Ohio in. And that was a high performance carbon fiber machine that was well balanced with aerodynamics, not this contraption. So I was going to explain it to you and all these great reasons as to why it exists and the engineering and the build and everything like that. But instead of doing that, I thought it would be better just to explain this purchase to my in-laws. It makes a lot more sense. So to my father-in-law, Dave, Dave, check it out. It's super 80s. It's at least as cool as the Jeep you want to get. It's faster than 944. It's totally utilitarian. And look at all this cool engineering. You can just see it. It's like fine craftsmanship and fun. To the in-laws in Colorado, check it out, you guys. There is plenty of room on this thing for a gun rack. There will be guns for days in the mountains. It'll be great. And to my mother-in-law, yeah, honestly, there are no redeeming features of this vehicle in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. In fact, I've already broken it. I haven't even gotten the opportunity to do a video of it driving, and I already broke it. It was a terrible decision. And we can talk about that terrible decision at Christmas. Love you guys. Anyway, so I got a dune buggy, and it's awesome. Today, I drove it on the street because it's street legal. Did I mention that? Street legal. Like, it's a Volkswagen Beetle from 1963. And it's got a license plate and, like, headlights. Yeah. And it's got a signal like this. Awesome. By the way, I just want to say this for all the international viewers and everybody in America, just everybody for that matter. I used to always dream about living somewhere else in the world, et cetera, et cetera. But honestly, there is nowhere better to live than the United States of America. Honestly, I can drive this thing around the street. I just chuck it around. It is great. I love America, seriously. So anyway, I broke it. We'll go on to why I broke it, but suffice it to say, that is a chromoly tubing, basically built like a bicycle. So that has something to do with it. But anyway, so the deal is with this, I think handrails are cool, okay? And I'm basically a big child. But when I was a small child, an actual child, in the late 80s, I loved radio control cars. And if you look at it, go over here, see if you can. It's got the general proportions of like a 1989 Gold Pan Team Associated RC10. And basically a lot of every other radio control cars. So how cool would it be if I made bodywork for it and a big off wing, just like the RC cars back then, and then painted it the same way? I think that'd be super cool. And you gotta have a giant flag on it for the dunes anyway, which will look like an antenna, and that'll be awesome. And so I did in fact drive this the other day. And it is so much fun to do like 70 miles an hour ripping across stones, and you just chuck it like a Scandinavian flick and just spin it sideways and out, which is awesome because when you're going backwards, you can look at the sweet dust cloud you made. And then when it starts slowing down the wheels, you just pop it in first and oh, off you go. It's great. And that's awesome because it's mid-engined, so it's beautifully balanced. And you can just make it do whatever you want. You can just drift it under power or off of power. It's only got rear brakes, so that's awesome. And this vehicle, I can tell you from driving it, is every bit of the enjoyment that I had as a child on a go-kart. You guys remember like the Vin Wiki story with the go-kart, like chucking golf balls and stuff? Yeah, it's just like that, but for an adult, and it's way faster, way stupid, ridiculous, faster, everything you dreamed of on a kid, except it breaks, so we gotta fix it now. Oh man. But I wanted to show you guys this because I'm looking forward to having a lot of fun. This, you know, I didn't even realize how insanely cool this would be. Like I had I had no idea. I just imagine, I'm like, I think that would be a good idea, yay! And then I was being all responsible, like an adult, and I'm like, I shouldn't spend money on something so frivolous. The problem with that is, though, I spend the majority of my time with college-age students in a confined area building stuff, and the testosterone in here is rife. And every year I'm here, everybody makes one bad purchase decision. So last year, the camera guy, Peyton, decided to buy a fixer-upper motorcycle for, what, $100?
Yep.
$100. And he fixed it up. And so I, like a big kid, decided when I went to the body shop, I'm like, hey, I see that Ducati that's been laid down in the corner. And I bought it for $7 and fixed that up. By the way, I still have to wire that thing, Peyton. We both suck.
Hey, my motorcycle is at a mechanic who owes my dad money.
Why aren't you fixing it?
Because he owes my dad money for a pig roast.
Okay.
So, you know.
Fair enough. So anyway, I don't even remember where we're going with this. So, oh yes. So long story short, Tyler decided he should buy a Honda chopper. And let's just put it this way on what a great decision that is. The kickstand is, in fact, a middle finger, which is hilarious. Not a real middle finger, but it looks like the silhouette of one, right? And he didn't even realize until he got it back. So I bought this, and hopefully it'll be good content. Even if not, I'll have fun when it's not broken. But if you want to come over here, I'll show you guys what's up with this thing, kind of give you the rundown on the build. Head to toe, really nice chromoly frame, or at least I thought so. It's thin wall, and then it's been heliarc welded. So you can see the big mount right here, busted clean off, busted right out of the tubing. So I'm gonna have to do some intelligent gusseting here and rebuild this area on both sides. But you know, that happens, and if I'm gonna lean on it hard, I wanna make sure it's gonna be okay. We'll get to that more here a little later, but it's just so nice. I mean, if you look at the front suspension tube, this is all billet aluminum. I mean, how nice is that? All of the trailing arms here, the original steel ones, they've been drilled for lightness. It's got this beautiful steering rack on it, well done. Just everything is nicely laid out. Just all the time, you can see with even the floors being lightened and the nice box that's made for the gauges. These seats are kind of the cheap, dorky seats, but they're in there pretty well. And it's a dune buggy. It's absurd. I like that the build isn't real chachi, like there's BS on it just for the sake of BS. Like everything is just nice and well thought of and laid out. But if you come over here and look at it, the pride of this thing is the motor. It's a Jeff Hart 2332 cc engine, and makes a better part of 200 horsepower on pump gas, you guys, which is just massive for this. Obviously, it's got the two big Webers, the downdrafts here. Cut the throttle right here. I will say this is somewhat disappointing. I'm gonna have to figure out something for designing this, otherwise my wife can't ride in it, because the alternator and belt is right here, which is way too close to long hair. So that's not gonna fly. We'll have to figure that out. But it's just really nicely laid out. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Here's the fuel tank up here, which makes total sense, because then if you spill your fuel, it'll go right on here on your beautiful equal length headers to make horsepower. Yes. No OSHA-approved sissy BS here. Ralph Nader can eat me. So this is the bus transaxle. It's been strengthened in a bunch of ways. Chromoly side plates. It's got the steel tube here. Just loads of the little tricks and all to strengthen it and make it better. And got the Yamar disc brakes in the rear. And just generally everything about it is super high quality, well thought out, and well loved. The man that I bought this from lives in Indiana, really cool guy, tool and die maker in off-roading, just cool guy. And he had this thing for 17 years, loved it, and is having a kid, so he decided to move it on and go on to some sort of a little more family-inspired fun. So I guess it's probably good that I'm having this now. And my in-laws are watching this. So they're judging, I know you're judging a little bit. Yes. So yeah, it's gonna be good fun, but now I gotta fix it. But we'll make it better. We can rebuild it. So, you wanna know everything on it that's jank that we gotta fix? Yeah, let's do that. First jank thing, if you wanna look at the rear suspension here, the mount for the top of the shock is at a stupid angle. The best thing to do it is to cut this off and turn these ears probably another 20 degrees this way for when it goes up and down, so it's not at this goofy angle. I mean, it works, but it's a really dumb angle. It's doing some things that are stupid there. Obviously, you can see this is the one that hasn't broken yet, and since this is very thin wall tubing, it's good that it comes into this node, but the nature of the way it's welded, this will eventually crack and just bust right off. Today I was giving Tyler a ride, and we came ripping out of grass and transitioned onto concrete, so there was a bump enough there to let it just let loose. And, you know, I was driving it sideways the whole time anyway, so all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, why are we still going sideways? I don't think we should be sideways right now. And so it broke. It wasn't a disastrous thing, because as you guys may know, Volkswagen, if you come to the back of it, I can show you the nature of how the suspension works. The beauty of this vehicle is it's so simple. Just look from straight in the back. And the suspension, it's not like upper and lower arms and all that malarkey. You've got this one strong tube here that pivots at the transaxle. The transaxle and the motor are mounted rigidly. And if you come to the back and down, I'll go up and down with it. So it's going to be full camber gain, but this is such a big, ridiculous tire that when you guys can see the camber gain, it doesn't really matter. It's an off-road vehicle if you got camber gain, so it makes it really simple and really nice. So you have this as your main link for the suspension, and then you've got your trailing link here. That's where it, of course, broke. So everything was still attached. It just, I lost directional stability, which isn't that big a deal on a sand rail because you never have directional stability, which is the fun part. And also, it's really easy. If you jack this up, you can adjust the coil for if you're going off-road, give yourself some more travel. Same thing for the rear. Right now, it's sort of adjusted for the street and just ripping around. But I'm looking forward to it. I mean, as with any new purchase, like I got the dyno sheets on the motor, and the guy was really took care of everything really nicely. But it's something new for me. I really don't mess around with air-cooled stuff very much, except with an airplane engine, but those things are really under-stressed and not that interesting. Obviously, it's got a transaxle, so that's right in my jam, in my wheelhouse, and Weber carburetors aren't that big a deal. But these engines are newer to me, so I just want to be nice to it. You know, obviously make sure the valves are adjusted properly all the time, using really good oil, proper weight with you know, the right amount of zinc for flat tappets so you don't beat them up. So that's got to happen, and we got to fix the frame. The other thing that I cannot live with on this vehicle, there's two things. One, this is pretty simple. The steering rack here has got this nice like billet aluminum support with a bushing in it, which is fine, but this bracket that's welded on the frame is just an L-bend, and the bracket has got that much play in it, which is just not acceptable. It doesn't twist so much, and I don't mind a little play to play. It really doesn't matter in a vehicle like this, but I'm gonna have to come up with some other kind of support or potentially welding it back here, because truthfully, there is a little bit of a crack here forming. So I'm gonna very carefully inspect this thing visually for cracks, because clearly that suspension mount broke off, and this is starting to go. So I'm gonna have to do that. The other thing that's difficult, and anybody that's into road racing, such as Formula cars know, that since this is now mid-engine, you know, you do your best you can to have your shift linkage going all the way back. But, and I know the previous guy is like, oh, it's not that big a deal to find second. So Volkswagens have kind of a funny pattern. They sort of like notch over a little bit. And there's no reverse lockout on this thing. There's no detent for reverse, nothing. So if you're in first, it's not that hard to find first, but you come into second, you gotta just kind of know where it is and have the linkage be right and just go for it. And when you figure it out, it's fine. But if you screw it up or try to come straight back, you go, and you start zipping reverse gear, which is like, oh God. And the problem is, once you go first, second, third's no big deal, fourth is no big deal. So upshifting is great. And fourth down to third is fine. And if you were in second and you wanted to go to first, that wouldn't be a big deal either. But it is virtually impossible. It's, for all intents and purposes, it's impossible to go from fourth into second or third into second and make it without either sticking it back into fourth or zipping reverse. So I think I'm gonna make some sort of reverse lockout. I know that the dune buggy and sandrail people and everything like that, they've got some really sweet shifter boxes that are made for when it's rear engine. So you have the linkage going directly into the transaxle, but it would be reversed the other way. So then if you use one of those boxes, you have to have like a mid-engine adapter with all this malarkey back here. And that's fine, and it probably works, but I also don't feel like spending, I don't know what that crap costs. It could be anywhere from like $450 to $800 for that stuff. And I've already got something that shifts. So I think what I'm gonna do, if you come on down here, I'm gonna show you. This is obviously the shaft that comes out to be able to select the forks. This shaft that goes in the transmission here is what is called the hockey stick. It sort of looks like a hockey stick and goes in and it pushes all the forks. One thing, if you look right here, the bushing in the, might want to come close, the bushing in the tail shaft of this, there's a lot of play. You can see this side-to-side play. That makes it sort of loose and vague. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece, which is steel, and reverse is all the way up and then back. So that's reverse, okay? And this is now in reverse gear. Obviously, there's a little bit of play with the nature of the hockey puck, and perhaps a little bit that comes into play with the shift fork. So I'm gonna check all this stuff out internally, but what I will likely do is take this piece of steel, take it off, and weld on a fin. And you might want to come over this side. Weld a fin on right here on this side, a flat fin. And then I'll make something that clamps onto here with like a big bar, so that if you want to go into reverse, you can't go into reverse because the fin will come down and hit the bar. Okay, so that'll be your reverse lockout. And then what I'll probably do is make a cable mount coming from here that attaches to the bar and has like a push spring on it. So you can pull the bar out of the way, and then you pull the cable to shift it into reverse and find reverse, and then when you let go, it just goes back. I don't mind if the shifter's a little bit vague because it's easy to go from second to third and third to fourth, and especially if you had the lockout, it would be pretty darn easy to go from first to second. But I just need to make sure that when I aim to find a gear, I'm gonna hit that gear and not be buzzing in reverse and obviously screwing things up. So it's really fun. I do have a couple little clips that Ryan took from his camera of ripping this thing around before I busted it. So anyway, I hope you guys are excited to join me on this absurd midlife crisis and all the great adventures that will ensue. Hopefully go to the sand dunes in Michigan, maybe go off-roading. Although if I'm gonna go off-roading, I'm gonna have to like make sure this thing can handle that. And of course, drive it on the street and be very silly. So enjoy the drive, guys. See you next time.
He is hauling.